All right, Chris Petri here. Thanks for coming by. We're having a fun time painting oils. We're doing a gorgeous harbor scene here. There's something about the coastal scenes with oils and watercolors and even acrylics. But we're doing oils, we're painting oils. We're going to show you all of the details you need to get something like this done. We're having a good time of it. We're going to do a pencil drawing first. Then we're going to cover the canvas with some beautiful yellow ochre glazing, but we're going to go really super light this time, and we're going to use a different technique, which you'll see when you start watching the video. We're going to do something a little different that's going to help us to actually be able to paint this painting a little bit more, I think, a little more with less hassle. So sometimes you can change your techniques in oils and make things easier for yourself so that you don't have to work as hard. So that's what we're going to cover next. And again, we're going to get a good result here. We're just noticing we have good lights here, the sky, the setting sun or the sunrise, whatever you want. It's your happy painting. You can create whatever time of day you think it is. And we have some fishermen on the boats and people walking on the piers down there by the buildings, and there's restaurants down there and boathouses and businesses. Fishermen are hustling and bustling. Either they're coming in or they're going out in the morning to catch some great fish for everyone so that they can have some fantastic meals. And so we can create a story in our mind, have fun with it, enjoy it. It's art. Let's be creative in our minds and just think about the scene as we start to paint and have a good time of it. Okay? All right, we'll be right back. All right, we just saw the finished painting. Let's get our drawing started. I'm going to just do a simple harbor scene. So what I'd like to do is first maybe get about, if this is halfway on the canvas here, I'll use a regular, I think this is an 8B lead pencil, Office Pencil Works, or retractable pencil, or even a little bit of charcoal. I just want to get a couple hash marks here. So I think I want to go a little bit below the halfway point, possibly, with an interesting bit of information over here. This is going to be some of the distant buildings. And then we're going to have a bridge going across the water here, like this. Like that. And then from there, we're going to have some distant buildings over here. Those are going to be lighter. And this will be bridge here, and then we have a okay, so that's kind of the general feel for the bridge going across the waterway here. We're in a harbor, in a port, and we're going to have a little more buildings here. Then we maybe have more of an identifiable rooftop here, like so. This might be a fishing shack, boathouse. There's some restaurants here along the water, fishing boats. Beautiful scene. Maybe this is like early morning or sunrise or sunset. Kind of a mysterious feel. So the bottoms of the buildings aren't so much important because we're going to have boats over here. So maybe we'll have some boats down here. And then we'll have another boat coming across here. So these are going to be some dark shapes here in the foreground. We'll use our ruler. Maybe we'll get a couple verticals in for our masts, some boat masts. But again, just kind of blocking in some general information, maybe some windows here. And we're going to cover this canvas too with, so I'll just go with some windows here. I'll just quick block out some squares like that. I'll try to get in a couple verticals here. So maybe we'll have a mast like this, like that one here, maybe one over here. I don't know if I'm going to go with one there. Maybe, yeah, maybe one here, like that. And we'll do some smaller ones over here, maybe. And there's some docks over here too, and pilings, just to kind of get ourselves a little bit of a sketch going. I think that's all we really need to do. We don't have to do much more than that, I don't think. There might be another base over here too of this boat. So this just might be some dark. These are basically darks. We're going to block in darks here. This will be more or less the focal point of the painting. The buildings here and the waterway. And maybe the waterway we can see in the distance here. There's some buildings there. So these buildings maybe come out like this. Like that. And then the same thing over here, maybe like that. And then the water is about there. The distant horizon line of the water. And then we'll have some clouds up here. And we'll see how it goes. And the next thing we'll do is, I have my paints laid out here. I dampened just a rag I have here, and I dampened it with water. Fresh, clean water. And what I wanted to do this time is just do some experimenting. Instead of brushing on the yellow ochre, I'm going to try to maybe get a thinner glazing of yellow ochre, but I do want to prime this. I want to prime the canvas here, the hardboard canvas. So let's see how this works. A little bit of yellow ochre. And if I can just, what I'm trying to do is see if I can get it really thin as possible. The prime on here, this yellow priming. Because sometimes if there's too much yellow ochre on there, it's too thick of a base coat. The only other option is to, which is fine, is actually just letting it dry. So I should have maybe primed some canvases, but I like to try different things anyway, so. Okay, so good cross hatchet, I guess. Just to get some of that golden color there. And that should be good, I think. Then I'll just that looks good. Now we can start painting. Okay, what I'm going to do is take a quick break. I just want to get my brushes prepped here. I have to look for a few brushes. I think I only have a couple on my table right now, so let me do that. Let me find my other brushes that I need, and we'll start painting. Alright, so I'm prepped and ready to go with a large brush here, a flat brush. And it's a number 10. And I want to try to get it's going to be a darker sky, as you saw in the first part of the video. So it's not going to be really super light. So I'll try some blue. I'll dampen my brush a little bit with some water. And I always like to have paper towels too, on hand at all times. I'll take some white and blue and some brown, a little bit of phthalo green, a little more blue. I think what I want to do is sort of get the color I'm looking for by just mixing it a little bit like that. Okay, this is a little bit of a darker sky, so I'll go somewhat thin. You can start out your sky. I just want to go with more of a blue. And we have the gold under there too as well. Have fun with it. It's your painting. You can just take your time, mix around some colors. Now I'm just going to start to thin this down. So this is kind of darker up here toward the very, very top. As always, the sky is darker at the top. It's high up above. So we have a sunrise or sunset here in this painting, so we're going to encounter that this will be darker up top, the sky up top, and then it gets lighter as it gets toward the water. So I'm going to start mixing into more white here, using the same colors. And this is experimental, of course. And if it doesn't come out good, I'm just going to start another one. So more of a lighter and warmer portion to the skies. The sky now is going to be lighter and warmer. So white, a little bit of blue, but mostly the colors that we had mixed underneath, which was a little bit of, blue, green, brown, a little bit of gold, a little bit of red. I kind of used all of these colors, but I kind of kept it really toward, a lot of blue in it. Up top here on these darker washes, you can add more burnt umber and dark French ultramarine blue to get a darker bit of a color up top if you want. And then I just trying to capture the lighter bit of color here toward where the water is. And then I can always soften this up. If you don't like a kind of an impasto look, with the thick, heavy brush strokes, you can always blend your colors a little more lightly, just very, very lightly, barely touching the canvas. Blend the colors a little more for that softer look. You can get a softer, kind of more satiny type of look to your painting, or you can use more thicker paint and put it on thicker and leave those brush marks in there too. So it's up to you how you like to have your painting look. And then we'll keep going here with the water. So the same thing, blue, green, brown. I'm going to try to I'm going to match the water should match the sky. Another thing too that's pretty kind of important is going thin with your first glazing like we're doing right now. Like I would say really try to keep this thin, this first glazing that you do. Up in the sky, not so important because we're not really going to be doing anything up here other than we're just going to let that be actually. So, but always, if you can keep in the back of your mind, wherever you're going to be painting more subject matter, like we have a bridge here, buildings, a little bit of like some mountainous kind of outcropping of some like a hill coming down here by the bridge, some trees, boats here in the foreground with water. It's kind of good to go thinner right now with this first coat as we're painting. So this way when we go over with those darker darks to make our buildings and the boats and everything, we'll be going thicker automatically to try to get those parts of the painting to look good, and we have to paint it over this coat of glazing right here that we're doing now. So if you can get it thin, if you can get it nice and thin here, then you're kind of ahead of the game, because if you go really thick with paint over here where you have to paint, where we have to paint the buildings and everything and the bridge and some of the other parts of the painting, that can get a little bit problematic with too much paint on there. Then it's going to be like, it'll be like we'll have two paintings, kind of thin coats of paint, and then all of a sudden when we start getting to the buildings, we're like fighting and trying to like get the paint to stick on there and stay on there, and then we have to go too thick. It's going to look a little bit, you could let it dry actually. You could paint the sky like we're doing right now in the water and then let that set up for a couple days and come back in. So you can take your time with your oil paintings too if you want. You can like do sections at a time and let those sections dry, then come back and then start and begin to paint again. The only thing is when you do it that way, you don't get as soft a look. It's harder to blend the different transitions of darks and lights and the water and the sky and the buildings. Like it's harder to make it look like smooth looking, the painting, and kind of like it's a unified bit of work here, the painting. Whereas sometimes letting things dry, you can see some of the edges that are dry where the new paint is going on. It's hard to explain, but you'll learn from experience as you work with oils over time. You can experiment again with doing sections and letting it dry and then painting over the top. You might have good success with it, but I've done it that way a few times here and there, and it just tends not to look as good as if we can just get this all done in one go here and get the whole painting done in just the one wet, as they say. Okay, and then I'm just going to do that smoothing process again. Just smooth it out. Okay. Okay, next, I'll take another quick break while we have this completed. I'm going to rinse off my brush here. I'm going to empty out my water, put some fresh, clean water in my water bucket, and we'll pick up again and we'll start getting into these darks. You're going to see how wonderful this looks once we start putting in some really nice darks for our buildings and the bridge and everything and the boats. So we'll be right back. Alright, so we did start with the number 10 flat brush here for the sky, of course, and the water. Now we're just going to go with a number 4 flat brush too, and we're going to create the buildings and the bridge and some of the other things. The boat, we might go back up to we'll do the boats last in the foreground, closest to us last. But let's get the buildings and the bridge and some of the other things here going. So I'm going to mix up some blue, phthalo green, brown, some alizarin crimson, so nice good dark. Sometimes I have to move my light a little bit. Hopefully that looks okay if I move the light back a little bit. The glare, I can't see the paint sometimes when I'm working with the light. Alright, I'm going to start over here and just I guess with this, with the some of the importance of it is just to keep the really good darks looking dark. You have to continually rinse off the brush and clean off the paint, because we're picking up quite a bit of that grayish blue color. So what I do is I just rinse off the brush, take off all that paint, and then start off with that damp brush with the dark paint again, and this way we can keep working this. And that's the idea behind kind of keeping the first glazing thin. Then your brush is not picking up that much paint when we're doing this right now. And I also left this, as you can see, I left that the prime. I didn't go over the bridge area too much with the grayish blue sky and watercolor. And sometimes you can let that blue sky and water wash blend in with the bridge and the buildings too as well. So it kind of blending and mixing as you're going is a good thing. It's just, finding that happy medium of where it's not extreme thickness of paint on your first glazing. So I'll do the same thing again, rinse the brush off, dry off the brush hairs. I'll pick up some more, I'll make some more dark here. So that's burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of phthalo green, a little bit of red, alizarin crimson, a little bit of cadmium red. Good thick dark paint here. I will try to paint around the windows. Okay. All right, it's coming along nicely so far. I'm happy with the results as we're going along here. Maybe we'll pick up some of this blue. We'll make a change maybe in tone over here. Maybe this building's a little bit lighter. Maybe it's some stone or stucco on this building over here to the right. can leave some highlights on the sides of the building. Okay, and I'll rinse off the brush again. Maybe I'll mix up a little more blue in this and see if I can get something different up here. All right, we're coming along nicely. I think that we could, at this point, take another break here. Just to, it's always good for myself anyway. I like to just, stretch a little bit, take a break, relax, maybe sit down if I'm standing. I stand at my art table here, so I'll sit down for a few minutes and, just take a quick break. And then it's kind of, when I do that, I tend to come back and just look at the painting. I look at the painting before I'm kind of picking up the brush again, and I sometimes have an idea or I see something I wasn't seeing before. Also, too, stepping back from your painting is a really great idea. You step back about a couple steps back and look at it from a distance a little bit, and sometimes you'll see other things a little differently when you're stepping back and looking at your painting from a bit of a distance. All right, so I'll be right back, and we'll start to work in some of the distant, lighter buildings. All right, so we're going to continue here, going with a little bit of a lighter tonal value back here where these buildings are. I'll just mix in a little bit of the white into the colors we already have here. It could be a little cooler and a little bit more blue, maybe a little more green and blue in there. That'll get a little more brown in there and blue, just to darken it up a little bit. Okay. Okay. And a little more phthalo green and blue. Let's see if we can get some buildings over here in the distance. And some indications over here too with the bill for buildings. Okay, so that helps with that. Okay, and blend this in here. All right, so you can kind of see we've got a lot of the darks here now blocked in, and I'm going to keep this dark over here like this. I think we'll kind of save our details, for a little bit later. Let's keep blocking things in the larger portions of our subject matter. We can always go back and do some details. So usually our fine details are at the end when we're finishing up. Let's keep working our darks, and I think I'll go next with the boats in the foreground. So I'll go back to my larger brush, number 10. So I'll rinse off this brush here. Okay, and then I'll dampen back up my number 10, take a little bit of water off that, and then start to work some really good. We're going to need quite a bit of dark, so I'm going to mix up a lot of dark here. Burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, phthalo green, some alizarin crimson, and I think we can get some really good darks in here now. So let's see, how did we have this? All right, this was here. And you can see this is very, very dark. This is the foreground, so this is going to be the darkest darks of all. And it's thick, pretty thick. You can see this paint now, it's thick here. I'm going to try to block this in a lot here. All right, so that to me is looking good, because we're sort of blending in the, or we're blocking in the darks here in the very foreground, and then we had another bit of really nice dark over here. Which was another boat. And we didn't have to really describe too much more than just this kind of a good dark bit of color here. Okay, so you'll see everything gets lighter as it goes back into the painting. The darkest darks right here, the foreground, and then everything gets a little bit lighter as we're going back into the distance. So I kind of planned for that when I started over here with the bridge and these buildings over here, the boathouses, and there's some restaurants over there in the background and so forth, and we can have a couple other things. We can make some other details too if we wanted here. We can take some of that dark there, maybe lighten it up just a little bit, and we could do like a nice shed roof over here like this. Another one over here, so you can make some details, and you know, we'll get a smaller brush to do some of the finer details, but so far looking good. I think what I'll do now is I think I'm going to change my brush in a second or two to maybe a smaller detail brush, I think. Alright, so I'll clean off this brush, change out my water. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll take a quick break. I'm going to rinse off some of these brushes now, and we'll come back and I think we'll start working the final details. I think we have a lot accomplished so far. So we'll do the masts for the boats probably last, and we'll get in some more details around the docks over here by these boathouses and so forth. We'll get some more detail for that. A little bit of reflections on the water and some choppiness to the water over here maybe. And I think we should be maybe a couple of details on the bridge possibly, or over here on the left hand side, maybe over here too on some of the windows. We'll do some details on that. Alright, we're coming back again. Now alright, I'm going to put a reflection under here. For the bridge. And I'll try to just maybe clean up a few spots, you know, fill in some of the areas that are looking a little bit scratchy. And I can add a little bit of darker tones within these buildings back here in the further distance, as long as I keep them, you know, definitely toward the lighter side, but just maybe a little darker to get some changes in those sections over here. And more darks under here, like that. And we'll put some window panes in with a flat brush. A little choppiness to the water here. I might make those, you know, some dark, some medium tones, some dark tones for the choppiness of the water. And then they get very subtle as they get further away, until eventually you don't really see any of the choppiness to the water after a while. Okay, and then we have the far distance I want to sort of have in the far distance that horizon line there, so I would go with just a very, very light grayish color. And I'll just see if I can barely get that distant water. Yeah, that looks good. Kind of gives us the feeling that there's the distant shoreline, distant water line there for the ocean. We can make some small little bits of detail like this can really make everything look really, realistic, somewhat realistic here. We're not explaining every detail, but definitely we might have a few boats in here too. We'll put some masts down here, some boats in the distance here. And then, like we said, we can take a flat brush. So now we're into the details mode of things. I'll get some of that dark on this flat brush. And then we can just put some of the grills in the windows. So I just sharpen, kind of chisel edge the brush. I take the brush in both sides like this, and then wiggle the brush to kind of get a nice point on the brush like that. Wiggle it back and forth, both sides. Press the paint into the brush, and then take the brush and kind of just wave it around a little bit, and you'll get a real nice point on it like that, if you can see. Like that. And then we can just take it and very, very quickly just touch down onto the paper. And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Like, you just tap it down there. They don't have to be straight, perfectly straight. You can make them a little bit crooked if you want. No big deal. And just do some horizontal. And again, doesn't have to be perfect, and you can add, 3 or 4 of them like this, just a couple like that. Looks good. Maybe a little bit of dark paint, the same thing. Maybe a little detail along the underside of the gables of the roofs here, or this gable on this side here. So if I put a little dark under there, that kind of gives us the feeling that there's some light kind of catching on the eaves of that, the rake boards of those gables here, like that. It looks good. We could go back to our round brush. So we have our round brush here, and we could do a chimney up here maybe, like this. We can make it more of a red, pick up some of that red. Just a little hint of the orangey red for a chimney might, that looks good. A little bit of cadmium red, kind of like that clay color. Some gold. Maybe there's another chimney over here. Like that. So we, details are, coming along. We're trying to just do a few things here and there. And then the key is not to overdo the details. That's why we'll keep looking at this as we're working on it, and keep asking ourselves the question: are we starting to do too many details, or is it looking good? Is it looking okay? So I think right now we're just starting the detail process. So I'm not really worried about it at this point. But I will keep in mind, I want to be just mindful of that I don't want to go too much with, keep going and going and going with the, and you can also infuse some different colors like we're going to do here. So I'm adding in some reds and oranges, which looks good, kind of like little pops of color here and there. It's a fun thing with oil painting. You have so much versatility with colors. You can just blend in and smooth in all kinds of different mixes of colors, and then add real nice accent colors like this to the painting. So we start off with that really mellow blue, green kind of, with the gold underpainting. It really looks nice, just getting the main paint on the canvas here. And then now when we're in the final phases, we can add these little bits of details and little bits of sparkles of color that really looks great. So we're going to continue with, I think the masts are going to be next for these boats. So that will be, I think we could use we'll use a flat brush. And we're going to use darks, of course, lots of darks. And I might even take out my so you can use it's up to you where you decide to put some details. Maybe this one's like this. So then I just really and then I hold that stick right there, that dowel that I have. I hold that right there and I just don't let it move at all. And then I go over a second time with another upstroke like this, like that. And that gives us a beautiful vertical. And then we'll do the same thing over here. We'll take this, we're going to have a vertical over here. Same thing, load up the brush. And then just ride the brush alongside the dowel. Pick up more paint. We obviously need a good thick amount of paint there to get this to work. And you could have some areas that look a little lighter, so you don't have to make sure that everything is kind of like thick as far as your mask goes. Your mask can be some thicker, heavier paint in one section, and it lightens up in another, kind of like this. So now we're really looking good. We have some good verticals. We could do another one here, or another one here if we wanted to. Another one maybe on a little bit of an angle. Maybe this one's a little bit smaller, so I'm going to make this one thinner, a little thinner, and not quite as tall, so maybe I'll start there, like that. So I think that looks good. Some good verticals. Gives a great three-dimensional quality to the painting when you start building out your depth perception in a painting by adding in your foreground boats with the masts, and then that actually just pushes everything back. Like, if you can feel the three-dimensional quality of the picture when you're looking at it now. When we put in, can you see how that works? Adding these foreground features definitely gives you a lot of impact as far as your three-dimensional quality of your painting, in this case, of course. So now we can still have a little more attention to more details. I think what I'll do is I will take my round brush and okay, I have my round brush now. Now we can use a lighter tone for some masts over here. And these are boats that are in the harbor here that are kind of, you know, alongside these boathouses. Maybe a few of them are lighter. The like that. You can do a few of those lighter, and you can use dark too. Why not? We'll do a few dark boat masts over here. And if you find that the round brush isn't giving you good results, you can just take your flat brush again, do the same thing. Work in some dark into the brush, splay out the hairs of the brush like that. Get yourself a nice chiseled point on your brush like that. And then you can come in here and just do a couple of masts just by touching down and doing your boat mast just a little bit at a time. And you just try to keep it nice and straight, you know, the line as much as possible. You just get some more paint. You can maybe do one at an angle. Of course, they're not always perfectly straight. Get some more paint on there. Maybe another one over here. Just a couple indications of some boat masts, shapes of boats here. That looks good. And again, we can do maybe some details to the bridge. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just add little, I'm going to try to keep these in even intervals. These might be like light posts, or these might be just like piers on the bridge, something like, you know, concrete or stone or brick piers. And I just maybe, you know, do a little bit of detail work on the bridge like that, just to add a couple little bit of verticals. Like that. Then maybe we can even add in a little bit of details too. We could add a few details to the I think we have to do these quick. would just kind of give it a couple of practice swings, and then I wouldn't do many. I would just kind of do a few. That one's a little bit thick, so some of these, they should be looking more thin, but I think that's all right. It's just an impression of what I'm seeing. Probably better off if we went to a smaller brush like this. Like that. And I think we have a completed painting. I think any more details might start to look, I would say, if anything, let's make a couple of fishermen and some people maybe. Let's do that. Figures are always nice to have in our paintings, so let's do that. I'll take a quick break. I'll come back and we'll do a few figures. We'll try to place them carefully so that they look good. And I think at that point we'll be fine. We'll have a finished painting. All right, I just zoomed in a little bit here so we can finish up, and I'll just take a little bit of that paint from my wax paper palette. I just thought that we don't have to really, it's fine that I'm kind of zooming in here a little bit. I don't think you'll mind up with that. I'll try to, go over these taped sections, so I'll just pick up some of the same paint we used, and I'll fix up these taped areas where we taped off our painting to the board so that it didn't move on us. We always want to remember to keep our working board that we're working on our canvas, whether if you're working with a soft canvas or if you work with a hard board like this, it's always good just to remember to have it stable for yourself so that it doesn't move around. And I'll just put in that little bit of paint at the top here. Chances are that little bit of area around the outside border of your painting, that's going to be behind a frame if you frame your painting. So, but it's still good to fill it in with the color that you used before. And we said we just wanted to do a few figures, so let's do that. I'll use the same round brush, and I think maybe I'll put a few figures here. So I'm just going to put a few head and shoulders over here. Maybe a little bit of that reddish color. So I use my wax paper again. I'm using the same colors. I'm just getting some color maybe here on a few of the faces. Maybe that orangey red color. And we could make another figure or two over here. Maybe a few figures down here. A figure standing over here. So I'll just get the and just have a figure over here standing on the boat. And then I'll just, again, a little more yellow ochre and cadmium red. And a little bit of alizarin crimson. And we'll just get some flesh tones here a little bit. And we have a little bit of light in the picture. That's sun setting or sun rising. So I could take a little bit of the white. Here, I'll just put it on the paper, white, with a little bit of the yellow ochre. So a little bit of that yellow ochre. And I'll just keep adding white to it. That looks pretty good. And then I'll just take it and take off a little bit of the paint. And maybe we'll just do a couple little highlights on the shoulders. Maybe just a little touch there, here and there. Shoulders. So I think if we add a few highlights over here just to that looks good. I wouldn't do too many. That's why I would just use those very sparingly. So I just wanted to do a few touches of some of that yellow ochre mixed with the white for a couple of highlights, but I think we are all set. I'm glad you joined me here. We're having fun doing oil paintings. We get together every other week, so we have time. We can practice on our off weekends. But let's get together. Let's continue each week now, every other week, and we'll have lots of fun. We did some harbor scenes. What we've done, actually, you can go back, even check out some of my, if you're just kind of here for the first time, I welcome you. Thanks for coming by, for painting with me. We have actually probably 20 paintings now on my oil painting channel. So the first few I did actually some really nice harbor scenes, Venice scenes with the water. So I always like to mix these in, the coastal type scenes. I like to have those. A lot of people like them, and myself personally, I'm included in that group. I just there's something about the water and the ocean and things like that, boats, and it's just a great thing, great subject matter to paint. So again, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. This way you don't lose us here on this channel. Again, we get together every other week on Sundays usually, sometimes Saturdays, but usually Sundays. And we'll continue to paint, having a great time. All right, we'll see you soon.